back up. So why did I buy a ranch in New Mexico in 1993? So that gives you some sense. So I would have funded it in 1990. Los Alamos, which was the high-energy lab up in New Mexico, was losing all its scientists.
And Los Alamos, it was where Oppenheimer and where a lot of the nuclear weapons program, the bomb.
That's where the Manhattan Project.
Manhattan Project was as Los Alamos, and you bought your property out in New Mexico to be near that?
Yes, because the scientists were going to be, they cut the funding for high-energy physics. But the people who worked in Los Alamos would still be in the Santa Fe area.
They cut that because this was the Cold War dividend, right?
I don't remember exactly why. It was because, again, people thought that physics and high-energy physics really wasn't that important.
Because that was about nuclear weapons.
No, it was because they decided, which may be not right, this was the same time that Murray Gell-Mann came up with the term quark, Q-U-A-R-K. He picked it out of an old poem, the word quark. But it was it was mysterious. So they were starting to understand in the 90s that in our world of the physics world, there was things that were just unexplainable. They called it strange things. You gave it a name. You gave it some characteristics. You called it had charm, was one of the terms. It had a charm. It had a flavor. It had a color. But nobody really, no one, Mr. Bannon, understood what it was. Just like the financial system.
And you wanted to investigate that?
I wanted to see if we could build tools so others smarter than me could help investigate it.
And that was the beginning of your concept of the Santa Fe Institute?
Yes.
And Santa Fe Institute was founded to do study in this type of...
Can these areas of strange things be described by some form of mathematics?
So that's what I'm trying to get at. The foundational thought, the organizing principle of Santa Fe,
yes,
in the high physics lab at Los Alamos, right, which had been the headquarters of Manhattan, and the Trinity Project, right, the bomb.
Yes.
So you're talking about the elite, the high priest
of physics.
Of physics.
Yes, sir.
Which high priest of physics, some subset of that is also mathematics.
Yes, they're both similar.
Project out. One of the tools you want to do is to make sure that in this complex system, the finance system, I'm doing a lot of this for philanthropy and a lot for the good of mankind, but also to be able to understand this complex system, the most complex outside of maybe our body, of the financial world.
Yes.
Did they create tools, or were you smarter in then the mid-aughts, 15 years later, than you had been then because of work that was done at Santa Fe?
No. It was great. But in fact, most of the money, most of my philanthropy in the area of can you describe things that appear to be unexplainable by mathematics, and can you fund people who have new ideas? And unfortunately, when someone thinks they've been able to, there was a man, Stuart Kaufman, when they think okay, I figured out how to be able to predict the unpredictable, what appears to other people to be unpredictable. But my system, in those days it was called genetic algorithms, can predict what things will happen, and they all want to make money. So they use their systems to try to figure out, they know they have figured out the way to make money because they figured out the unexplainable. They try, they go bankrupt, and we start again. So with a cold view.
Okay, now I'm going to move it ahead.
And one of the things that people won't enjoy, it turns out that potentially one of the bad things to teach children is how to write. So it's writing, reading, and arithmetic was supposed to be, everyone's supposed to be taught. But writing forces you into a very narrow channel of thinking. You have to write in a certain form, in a certain way, in a certain linear pattern. So your thinking becomes somewhat narrow. The reason I brought up writing is one of the recent discoveries of mine with respect to Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle is they never wrote anything. They spoke, and people around who could write wrote. Socrates could think. So that was...
Jesus of Nazareth was the same way, right? Never wrote anything.
I thought he was a carpenter.
He was a carpenter.
Didn't he need like a little carpenter's tonight? I don't want to get that.
But at least his written record.
Right.
One last thing.
Sure. Thank you for having me to your house. Vegetable juice.
Let's go back.
Look what vegetable juice does.
When did that? The beginning of that. Was there any one aha moment in all these great thinkers? Did it happen before 2008? Was it after? That came up over, I know, many years. But when did you actually realize, hey, something new's got to be developed?
Yeah, that's great. Is that because again, I'm privileged enough to have people around me who've given lots of philanthropic gifts to institutions of higher learning, and when I said the impact, how do you judge the impact of your giving? And we sat down and said, no really new ideas have come out, and I realized that of course it hasn't come out because we've been looking at using science and mathematics, and it's the wrong tool. It's obvious.
Institutions that are set up and try to put forward knowledge and understanding and truth, should they take your money?
Derek Bach at Harvard said taking money for good causes is a good thing.
So if Hitler took all the gold out of the teeth of the Jews and said, I want to give this to Heidelberg University to fund the Leibniz chairs so that I can study high energy physics, Derek Bach would say that was fine?
Again, it's these questions are questions where good people on both sides, like your Charlottesville,
a good part of his life,
could differ. I don't know the answer to these questions.
So tell us the two. Give us the two answers. What the one answer why it shouldn't be, and then the one answer. Derek Bach says, I'll essentially take cash from anybody because I got so many projects, so many good guys, and this is the way I'll do it. So I'm indifferent to where the cash comes from. Money's money. And if I got good guys, I'm the fiduciary that says these are good people and this is good research, okay? I'll take the cash from any source, including you. What's the other argument?
Let me give you that. I know in my case,
is your money dirty money?
If you live,
I just asked a question. Is your money dirty money?
No, it's not. So, in fact,
why is it not dirty money?
Because I earned it.
But you earned it.
I earned it legally.
We went back to this before. You earned
Yes.
it. You earned it advising the worst people in the world, right? That do enormous bad things, and just to make more money.
So, instead of asking me the question, should you take the money? Because I think it's a legitimate question.
You think it's a legitimate question?
Yes, no
Why?
question. Because I think you have ethics is always a complicated subject, but I can tell you that with the money I gave to help try to eradicate polio in Pakistan and India, instead of asking me whether that money should be given to these children for vaccines, I think you might want to ask their mothers who received the vaccine, who know their child now won't get polio, and ask them if Epstein should have helped these people with their money.
He's such a con man.
You're
Is that a fair question?
You're a mathematician. If we walked into that clinic where they're giving that money out to these people that are in the most dire straits of poverty and sickness, and told them that the money was coming from class 3 sexual predator?
Tier 1.
What's tier 1's the highest and worst?
No,
I'm the lowest.
I'm the lowest.
You're the lowest. Okay, tier 1, you're the lowest. But a criminal.
Yes.
That the money came from them. What percentage of people do you estimate? I understand you don't like probabilities. Do you estimate would say, I don't care, I want the money for my children?
I would say everyone said, I want the money for my children.
Did they know where the money came from?
If you told them, the devil,
100%.
The devil
himself
said, I'm going to exchange some dollars for your child's life.
Do you think you're the devil himself?
No, but I do have a good mirror.
It's a serious question.
Sorry.
Do you think you're the devil himself?
I don't know. Why would you say that?
Because you have all the attributes. You're incredibly smart. You remember, the devil is somebody knows.
Smart?
The devil's brilliant. You read Milton's Paradise Lost.
No, the devil scares me.
Satan is the he
That's
is the.
why he does what he does.
He is at
He worships
number
Satan.
1 or 2 archangel. And the reason he goes to hell and leads the rebellion is because he can't be the top guy. And his thing is, I'd rather reign in hell than serve in heaven.
I saw that in a movie once called American Dharma. I don't remember who said it. Okay? We have to go.
Okay, good.
Okay.
That was good.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I think that was really important to see, and if you get a chance to watch the entire interview, just make sure that you realize that he's a professional con man. He's a professional mind controller, and that's a really good definition of the devil himself, right? The devil himself. So this is going to be an interesting live stream today because I'll give you the evidence. Well, let's start, and then I'll give you some other evidence and we can discuss it. Thank you, Laura, for coming on. Thank you, Anicia. I know it's really late, but it couldn't be helped because there's so much coming out and we have to go through it before I go on. And there's so much I still need to post. So please share all the information, share it, and please share it on X. I need to go up and go over there and add all of the posts that I haven't shared over there yet. So if you're on X, please share all this on other platforms, including X, because X is part of the Grok algorithm. So when people use AI Grok algorithm, they can get that information along with what else is out there so that they can make an informed decision for themselves. So it really is important to share this information for all the search engines, and I know, like with Richard, they pay a lot of money to put false information at the top of searches because more and more information is coming out and evidence connecting those that hurt Richard with Jeffrey Epstein, with the John of God pipeline. So that's really important. And if you're just joining for the first time, we are the Gold Star family of Richard Halliday. Richard Halliday, a super courageous, heroic young man, and we're so proud of him. Joined the military, wanted to be CID, was the distinguished undergraduate for his cycle, number 1 in basic training and AIT, was stationed to Fort Bliss, really center of the world, I guess. I think there's a good argument it is. And he saw things. He saw things that he knew that he couldn't keep silent on, and he reported it. He was the Fort Bliss whistleblower soldier. When after retaliating, even though he was really asking over and over again for a transfer out of there because of months and months of retaliation, and he even put in to be deployed again. He'd rather be deployed than to be there in that unit, and they denied him. So we know things, of course, because of the chaplain that he went to, but it's very important for people to know that he was under whistleblower protection. At the beginning they lied to us about all that, but he was forcibly removed from his barracks room, taken down to a basement room, which was the arms room. It's a soundproof room. and he lost his life there. And they then stole his body off of Fort Bliss because of this El Paso cartel that had infiltrated Fort Bliss, the CID, even the Director of Emergency Services, the generals, his chain of command, and so they stole his body off of Fort Bliss, and the rest of the El Paso cartel, the Mormon faction El Paso cartel, um, trafficked his body to Juarez for disposal. And there is huge evidence because of all of this pipeline and all the business models within the pipeline, that they harvested his organs. Um, and maybe more. Okay. So now we know with the Plenitude Crematorium raid, and just recently in 2025, um, that that is where evidence indicates his partial remains were disposed of. That is connected to Maru Campos, the governor of Chihuahua, because Chihuahua and Mexico is a narco state. And she's part of the PAN party, part of the El Chapitos faction of the Sinaloa cartel under El Chapo, who was arrested during the same time as Jeffrey Epstein and, of course, Ghislaine Maxwell, and of course, John of God, okay, who was highly promoted by Oprah. And of course, Oprah endorsed Beto O'Rourke. She platformed Beto O'Rourke. And so this is it's all tied together, of course, with the baby farms and these illegal extractions of C-sections, of organ harvesting. And of course, when you're doing that kind of pipeline, like Jeffrey Epstein to John of God was doing with this baby farms and baby cells and organ harvesting and the genetic experiments that required all of that. Okay, he's laying out the Venus program, right? He and I don't claim to understand it, but it is really interesting. I was a math teacher, right? That was my minor in university was math. And so from what I understand, and please, all of you that are listening, if you have other expertise, please send that to us, because this is really important, because the Mormon faction El Paso cartel, the elites, they were, the cartel there in alliance with the Mexican cartel were the security team, the defenders of this pipeline on the taxpayers' dime. So they had Jeffrey Epstein had gotten a huge portion of our military there, our borderland military, narco politicians, elites, got their loyalty away from the United States, away from America, while taking taxpayers' money and putting their loyalties to him, to this pipeline, all the way down to Brazil. And when I say all the way down, I'm saying through Mexico, through Cuba, then it comes Haiti and Dominican Republic, and Haiti, of course, is very tied to the Clinton Foundation, and then to Dominican Republic, to Puerto Rico, where the island right off of Puerto Rico is Little St. James, which was owned by Jeffrey Epstein, where a lot of things happen there too. But of course, at the top of it is Zorro Ranch, right near Santa Fe, New Mexico. And it borders, that property, 10,000 acres. He had like 7.5, 8,000 acres, and then he rented another like 3,000 acres from the government there. And of course, that's why Richardson, the New Mexico governor, he's, the King family, all of that is involved in this. And also, you're going to hear even more connections with all of that. The Zorro Ranch, but this whole pipeline that even includes Venezuela and of course Brazil, because of the baby farms. But Jeffrey Epstein had his own baby farm, right? He had his own baby farm, and so this is where I want to play the next video for you. Let's see if I can bring that up. Here it is. Okay. Oh. Let's see. Oh, shorts. Okay. Here it is. Okay. Okay. I'm trying to, it wants to play, and I don't want it to play until it's on. Okay, so this is Tucker Carlson, and this is, well, let's listen to it because it ties right into what Jeffrey Epstein was talking about. And then I'll add, from my math perspective, what I think is going on here with all of this. Here we go.
I can't think of anybody I'm more disgusted by right now in our government than Kash Patel and Pam Bondi for their, I can't think of anybody I'm more disgusted.
This is an exchange between Jeffrey Epstein and, we think, a urologist, and I'm quoting, and they're going back and forth on stuff. And he says, I'm back. Can call you in Stendra 100 at Zitmer. Now, Stendra is apparently an erectile dysfunction drug, and he's prescribing it to Jeffrey Epstein, who apparently needs it. And Epstein writes, how many? And the doctor writes back, 10. After you use them, let's go get pizza and grape soda. Call me. So to all the people who dismissed out of hand this conspiracy theory about Pizzagate, oh, it had nothing to do with sex or kids or anything illicit at all. It wasn't a code word. Here you have apparently Jeffrey Epstein's urologist telling him that after you take your erectile dysfunction drug, wash your hands and join me for pizza and grape soda. Okay, now, this is an exchange between Jeffrey Epstein and, we think...
Okay, so... all right. So this was really, the video that played before that, everyone has their opinion, right? Everyone has their opinion of what's going on right now. But what Tucker Carlson was reading was from the evidence that was released, the millions of documents. And of course, we have to know that a lot of stuff was tampered with. So keep that in mind. But this piece of evidence, talking this pizza stuff over and over again, and other terms that in 2016, I believe, that they were, calling Pizzagate and all of that. This is really, you can't dismiss it because there's so many emails with all of this in there, and it's just eerie. It's just weird. It's just, and in this one, take it for what it's worth, but I thought it was important enough to share with you. They're talking about preparing for this, okay? Preparing with this drug, right? And what it tells me is that Jeffrey Epstein was about drugs, was about experimenting, was about genetics, but he was also about numbers. He was also about finance. And we know this with Bitcoin and all of these digital currencies coming out, and our credit cards and all that, that they no longer print money, right? They digitize everything. They digitize, and that they are working very hard through AI, through uh, digital monies, to replace, you know, of course, they replace gold and silver, which cannot be controlled, right? It cannot be controlled. There's only a limited amount of gold, limited amount of silver, and both gold and silver, copper, um, nickel, they have values, and those values, uh, really are like anti-inflationary. And so, as long as the US dollar, as long as monies, and I have old school books, y'all, that have exchange rates between the countries, right? And the value of what a dollar is, it was stable. It wasn't, it didn't flex like it does now, fluctuate and everything. Like, you can. People play the money market because it fluctuates, and they want to, buy low, sell high, buy low, sell high, and make a lot of money with all of this money exchanging and everything because it fluctuates so much. Well, before 1971, before um, President, what's it, Nixon, before President Nixon took us off the gold standard, right? Closed the gold window, took us off the gold standard. Before then, if you go back and you look at the inflationary charts, and this, I'm going to tie this all into Richard, okay, all in, but the charts are flatlined. There's no inflation. Okay. There's no inflation. You know, my grandmother's life, or people that lived in the United States, grew up before 1971. They didn't even say the word inflation. Okay. Um, my grandmother, my German grandmother, now she knew what that was about because of Germany and printing money after World War One, because the world was making Germany pay all this debt back, and it destroyed their money. Um, and you could wallpaper with the money. You had to use a wheelbarrow, literally, in the Weimar Republic to try to go and buy a loaf of bread quick enough, because the money was, you know, hyperinflation so bad that when you got to the bakery, you might not have enough. And this is what kind of brought in Hitler, that people don't talk about, because the first thing that Hitler did was create the Reichsmark. He created a money, and the Reichsmark was stable. And so all the goods, all the stores were empty. My grandmother would tell me all the stores were empty. But as soon as the Reichsmark came in and they had a stable currency, then all the stores put all their items on the shelves and opened their doors. They had an economy back, right? So, and with that came a lot of loyalty to Hitler. And I'm not saying he was a good guy or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that they mess with the money, because everybody understands going into a store and getting what you need. And when there's a hurricane or whatever, you have to beat the crowd, because there might not be toilet paper, there might not be milk, there might not be cheese, or might not be bread, right? So people understand the value of buying and selling. And when you can't buy anything, like pre Hitler times, you know, hey, you don't like that kind of life. And then all of a sudden, the stores are open, you have a stable money, and then you're like, oh, wow, this is great. He's for us, right? We can get milk now. We can get whatever we want, shampoo or whatever. Um, and so this creates a loyalty. And it is very clear that Jeffrey Epstein was mixing, to me, and I'm not claiming I totally understand it, but what I think he was doing was creating a monetary system that was linked to genetics. Okay. And he says it in that interview that the genetics becomes an instrument of finance. And I don't understand that, but I understand that he was a finance guy, he was a numbers guy, and he bought this lab in Santa Fe with these genetics. He was messing with the genetics, and he was trying to transfer for this genetics, in my opinion now until I learn more, transfer this genetics into a financial instrument, okay? Some kind of money. And because he was doing that, um, and he must have been, of course, we have Bitcoin now, right? Or all these other digital coins. Of course, we have everybody using credit cards now, you know. When he started, you know, it wasn't that. I mean, we have so much credit card debt right now. Uh, it's it's just such a it's such a weapon. The debt is a weapon. And so we don't know how much of that he was already doing, how much finagling he was already doing using genetics, using the terrible things that he was doing with humans, with human trafficking, and transferring that into numbers to transfer that into a financial instrument. And so, and I know because we homeschooled and I taught Richard this, to be anti-debt, anti-credit card. I mean, I know we have to use our credit card, but you have to be very, very careful. You know, if you can pay cash, you need to pay cash, because of the control of it all. Okay, the control of it and the spiraling down into the depths of debt and despair and meanness. Because when people get in debt, they get mean, they get brutal. Okay. And of course, you see that with what was happening in Germany. The World War I, and the Versailles Treaty put Germany in so much debt that it made them brutal. It made them get very ugly and try whatever, right? And so this is, and I hope that that makes sense, that Richard knew that that was a stumbling block. And I know that he knew because I taught him that in homeschooling. And that's why you saw that one video of him with the Hollywood money, burning it, saying, I'd rather burn my money than spend it on whores and blow. And this Fort Bliss and, of course, Fort Huachuca, very, very important in all of this because Fort Huachuca is signal. Fort Huachuca is mind control. Fort Huachuca is the border, right? And the signal is the controlling of the airspace. And so because they were operating illegally, but for him, and you heard him, for Jeffrey Epstein, you heard him in the interview, he said that ethics was complicated, okay? Ethics, I guess if you term the word ethics, right? But morals are not complicated. And I think anyone saying that they're complicated is not listening to their body, okay? Because God's and this is not this is just proven in all of history, and this is why he is wanting to go to the biological, wanting to go to the babies, right? This is why, because he absolutely knows that on every cell of our body is written God's word. God's word, what is right and what is wrong. And we know, because it's written on our bodies, when we're doing something wrong, it is wrong. And when we're doing something right, it is right. We know it. It screams from our body. And that's why we have guilt feelings, right? That's why we have guilt feelings. That's why we go into despair, because, our body reacts to what we're doing. And that's why religion exists, right? That's why religion exists, because we need answers for our not only for our guilt and our despair, but also for our joy, for our joy and for our happiness, for our celebration. That's why we have, we celebrate, right? We celebrate in all of our religions. So, and clearly, he said he's afraid of the devil. He didn't say he was afraid of God. Matter of fact, he was mocking God, right? He mocked God in the interview. But he said he was afraid of the devil. And that means he worships the devil, because we should fear God. We should fear God, because God is always there, the end of all things. He gives us our breath, he takes it away. And what Jeffrey Epstein clearly was doing in this is trying to be as God, right? Because the other documents that are coming out is like he's looking for the fountain of youth, right? The fountain of long life, the fountain of everlasting life, right? So he's trying to be as God. So it's really clear that it's us understanding everything around us is becoming clearer and clearer. And it understands why Richard was such a target, because he was reporting. He was reporting on the criminal trafficking, on the child sexual exploitation. He was reporting on the military base, Fort Bliss's ties to the Walmart shooting. And any of those investigations would lead to Jeffrey Epstein, okay? Would lead, and anything that led to Jeffrey Epstein would then lead to revealing this pipeline that went all the way down through to Brazil and John of God, and what they were doing with the babies, and this experiment that was turning their biological experiments, turning that into numbers, mathematics and numbers, that would in turn turn it into a financial instrument that they, I think, could cover up their guilt and their despair. Okay. Because, and so they were, the couch never worked. And what do I mean by that? You have, what was his name? That the great psychologist, it'll come to me, that got rid of the confessional, right? Got rid of your confession in church and turned to the couch. That you would go to a psychologist at the couch, and the couch and the sofa, you could tell your problems, you could set blame, blah, 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 blah. And that would make you mentally healthy, right? That would take away your guilt. That would take away your despair. And gosh, I know his name so well. Maybe ethics are complicated, morals are not. Right. Thank you, Candace. Thank you so much. Um, Even the Great Depression was manufactured, rich men to induce success, and Federal Reserve. Yeah. The Federal Reserve Bank, first they had to do the IRS and then they could do the Federal Reserve Bank. I have been sharing on X. Thank you so much. Freud, thank you. Freud is who I was talking about. So Freud, he said if we could just get rid of guilt, we could get rid of God, right? I mean, that's essentially his plan. And so he created the couch, right? Let's get rid of the confessional. Let's go to the couch. And now that, and it is not me that's saying this. This is documented. This is documented at their conferences that everything that they've tried to do on the couch has failed. The medication has failed. Everything has failed. And you can tell we're not, a society of happy people with that don't feel any despair from guilt, right? So it has absolutely failed. So you have more and more people going back to church, and because of this. But I think Jeffrey Epstein was going for something even more, a financial instrument to get rid of guilt, to be his savior, right? To be a savior so he could live forever, because I believe it was also some kind of fountain of youth he was looking for, because if he could get a financial instrument and make it biological, maybe he could control it and control life, right? So, it, and who his heroes are. You saw him like Socrates, or these were the most foul type people when you read about their lives and everything. So he is using those people that he calls really smart that don't even know how to write. They don't write, right? They were the foulest type people, and of course he is a foul person. I don't know if he's dead or not. They say he's dead, but I don't know. And it's we're going, as more and more information comes out, and as we're allowed to speak about it and use each other's expertise, we're going to get to the bottom of this. And the end of the day is, your choice is always the same. Who do you want to serve? The devil or God? And there's a huge difference between the two, right? And the devil is a created being. So, hell with him. He's a created being. And he's not everywhere at all times. And, he doesn't have the power like they try to give him, right? He's a created being, and a failed created being. He's a failed angel of light, right? He's a failure. So, to fear him tells me that Jeffrey Epstein is not as smart as they say he is. They say he's so smart, but you want to worship some failure, right? And a created being. God is the creator, right? The heavy weight. God gives weight to all things. He's the one that put the time clock in our heavens, right? The perfect time clock. So there's a huge difference. And so at the end of the day, that's going to be our choice. And so um, one is glorious beauty, and one is really guilt and despair and hell, right? Hell. And it seems, well, it's not, it seems, it's confirmed, and we've lived through it. What Jeffrey Epstein has done with his pipeline has brought hell on earth. And the Mormon faction, El Paso cartel, in alliance with the Mexican cartel, have been the guards, the security guards for that pipeline, and have brought on even more hell. And how do you know it? Because all we get is lies. Lies, 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 lies. And lies are proof of their demonic nature, right? Lies are proof, the deception and the lies. So that is very clear. Let me read some of these comments because it's pretty active tonight. And at 1:30, I think you deserve that I read through the comments if you're up this late. Thank you so much. So Joe Lynn, thank you so much. Freud, and he was a pedophile enabler. Yeah. It seems that Jeffrey Epstein is Freud on steroids, right? Power and control for these demons. Yeah, he needed Viagra. Yeah. Well, the reason why he needed that is because it was numerous. It was numerous. And it was torture. It was torture, and it was documented. You understand, he needed a camera person. He needed a video person. He needed somebody that was a movie director, because he was experimenting. And when you experiment, you are documenting everything. And this is what is so horrific. And I believe they have a lot of those videos. And it's like, okay, should they be released? Or will they? It's kind of like, how on TikTok you watch these videos or YouTube, and it's like, oh gosh, once you see it, you can never unsee it. Do we want to see it? Because do we want to risk damaging or polluting ourselves? That is because he doesn't believe it's pollution, right? And the other part of this is it's been confirmed now, his whole Santa Fe connection. And that's very, very important in our son's investigation. So, let's read some more. Does everyone here know of Christian Senator Nancy Schaefer on CPS trafficking children must be dismantled nationally? No, I don't. I think I heard about her. Thank you for mentioning. I'll check that out. But also, these men lack the ability. Yeah, that I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't been around them, right? Yes, pure torture. Maybe a group who can handle it, like I have already seen too much horror. Yeah, to go back. I'm a 2-time whistleblower in foster care. Yes, and that brings up Fort Huachuca, because foster care plays a big part in that whole Fort Huachuca, explaining that they were allowing for decades, well, over a decade, major abuse of children at the worst type in the foster care system. So thank you, and God bless you for doing that. It's scientific research that That's the snuff film addiction cannot be. Yes. And, the other thing is because I was born at White Sands Missile Range, literally White Sands Missile Range, not William Beaumont, not in El Paso, White Sands Missile Range. Um, and and of course went to school there, grew up there in El Paso, and my parents, my mother being American, but she got her citizenship there in El Paso at the courthouse. I posted that picture of my beautiful mother in front of the courthouse when she became a citizen of the United States and gave up her German citizenship. She, of course, was born in Germany and immigrated here. And my father, also, his parents immigrated, and he was born in the United States, but he still spoke German. So both of my parents spoke German, and they joined the German American Club there on Fort Bliss, well, at Biggs Air Force Base, and we went to the German commissary, and they had a lot of German friends. These German friends were officers, and they worked on a lot of these missile, drone, a lot of the drone research and everything. All of that is done at Fort Bliss. And also because they were bringing Germans over, and then that just ended not too long ago, just a couple years ago, they finally closed down the German base there. And I think it's because of all of this reveal, because with the Germans and their research, and he mentioned, well, it was Steve Bannon in this interview that mentioned Heidelberg and Leibniz, right? Leibniz and Heidelberg. And we lived, I mean, God has prepared this all, let me tell you. And of course, we lived in Heidelberg, Richard, for way over a decade, okay? We understand the institutes of research that they're doing in Heidelberg. Yeah, so for that to be connected to what was going on in Santa Fe and in this biological experiments to digitize it, to turn it into a financial instrument, explains why the elite, they're always looking for investments, I guess. I don't know. Gosh, it's just so dark. It's just so dark and creepy. And Richard saw that. And because, he grew up in Heidelberg and in Ireland and traveling all over the world, and joined from South Korea and all those experiences. Um, you know, when he got to El Paso, uh, he looked through a different lens than other people, and of course, he wanted to be CID. He was an investigator. He loved solving crimes and everything, and so that's how he was looking through what they were doing, and documenting it and filing it, and he is a true whistleblower. And that's why, and when he could get through all of their antics to try to sabotage him in the retaliation that they were severely conducting for a long time, continuously, when he got through it, being a stellar soldier still, that's when they silenced him. They did the counterintelligence with Ray Velarde, and then they silenced him. And other things came in play too, elections and things like that. But it's very clear that's why they did that. And now, today, the last couple days, We have received, a lot of information from law enforcement in El Paso, and this is breaking news, um, about the Julio Cordero case. Julio Cordero um, was shot and killed by an El Paso police officer named Anthony Acuna. Anthony Acuna is a close friend. And if you don't know who Julio Cordero is, he is the most decorated FBI agent in El Paso history. He is not um, a random retired FBI agent, okay? He is the FBI agent that was Poison Ponds, okay? Poison Ponds that brought down over 40, if not more, over 40 cartel-linked officials in El Paso, okay? It was huge. Delia Briones' family got arrested. I mean, they are proven corrupt, and many, many more, right? So everyone in law enforcement and the judicial system in El Paso knew who Julio Cordero is. They know who he is, okay? And Julio Cordero, we received information and confirmed it that he was investigating the last two individuals on his Poison Ponds list. These two individuals, two El Paso businessmen that he was still investigating and wanted to bring to accountability. Okay, that has been confirmed. Now, that goes against the entire narrative that the news media is giving you about Julio Cordero's state of mind at Franklin High School when he was shot and killed. Okay, he was absolutely investigating two El Paso businessmen that were still on his Poison Ponds list that he had not yet brought to accountability. And it was confirmed to us that once an FBI agent, you're always an FBI agent. And once you conduct something like the Poison Ponds operation that he did, that was so successful, the character that it takes in order to investigate Poison Ponds, the dedication it takes to investigate Poison Ponds and to bring over 40 cartel-linked politicians to accountability. In order to do that, you just don't turn that off, okay? You don't turn that character off once you're retired. And so we did get confirmation that he was still investigating that, and he was trying to bring these two El Paso businessmen to accountability. So that's very, really important. Oh, Heidelberg. Okay, yeah. They just mentioned Heidelberg. There's a lot of this is the German connection. Heidelberg, Germany. Sorry, Heidelberg is in Germany. Heidelberg is a university city. It's a amazing city, and they still do a lot of research there. Okay, they have a lot of labs there, a lot of researches, and Steve Bannon was asking, okay, are you using them because they're, this elite like MIT here, right? And Heidelberg is the German version of that, and they mentioned that, and I thought that that was really interesting because I know for a fact, because of our family, that you had a lot of Germans in that El Paso, White Sands, Santa Fe area, and they were officers. They were learned people. They were absolutely inventors and mathematicians, and because they were working on the drone problem, the drone capabilities and missile capabilities and all of that, and they were also, I'm sure, over the years they were bringing in more of these scientists to um, to explore and investigate other things. And that, I think, is what this conversation included. So, but more information is going to come out. Just like I had to correct my JT Juan Torres, the investigator for the Walmart mass shooting, did not go to Costa Rica. He went to Honduras. Okay, he's in Honduras. So I had to correct that. So yeah, that's paperclip and other things. Yeah, there's so many. Um, and I just want to say thank you. There's so many people that are sending us really good information right now, and of course, law enforcement there in El Paso sending us um, the information about the Julio Cordero um, incident. That now, because the autopsy report, Anthony Acuna's statement, they just don't add up, y'all. And what it screams, and I don't know if this is true. I know it's true about the Walmart mass shooting that was staged. I know that. I know it was staged. Okay. And what do I mean by staged? I'm not saying it was an act. There was absolute bloodshed, right? And horrific. Um, but that the crime scene was messed with. That's what I'm saying. And so I know that for a fact. And because of all of our investigation in that, in our son's case, where they've just tampered with files and, even whitewashed things in the files, and that they got the media to lie about our son. Um, and even the PAO, right? Even the PAO, the public affairs officer lying, and his chain of command lying, and all of these liars. It's just like one devil after the other. Um, that with the Acuna case with Julio Cordero, number one, Anthony Acuna, they should have put his name out there right away, and they didn't. They hid his name, and that's because he is an old and good school buddy of Montoya. Montoya, the impersonator DA. He is the DA, right? The DA, but he's an impersonator. And my goodness, right? They should have revealed that conflict of interest. I mean, you got the prosecutor and his good buddy, who shot and killed the most decorated FBI agent in El Paso history, who took down, through Operation Poison Ponds, over 40 crooked, dirty, cartel-linked officials. Okay, government officials. Wowzer. You're telling me that Anthony Acuna did not know who Julio Cordero was? I don't buy that. And also, when they called in the disturbance or the radio or whatever, um, all they do is run a license plate. They run a license plate. That's standard operating procedure. And they tell you who the person is. So are you telling me that Anthony Acuna didn't know who the person was when he went there? That he didn't call in the license plate? Right? And then the autopsy, it's just terrible. It's just absolutely terrible. It does not jive with Anthony Acuna's statement. And Anthony Acuna's statement is clearly like he has been coached, okay? Badly, coached badly. Okay, so if you're coached badly, then somebody doesn't get the timeline right. Okay? Doesn't get the timeline right. Only a person that is telling the truth gets the timeline right, right? So it is very clear that there has been anomalies and irregularities, and that something is up with the death of Julio Cordero. And now we have a motive. And that's really the breaking news. The breaking news, the motive, not only, and I almost forgot to tell you this, not only was he investigating 2 El Paso businessmen that were on his Poison Ponds list, that means they were connected to these other 40 dirty officials, but that he also said, he's on the record saying that Patrick Crucius could in no way carry out the Walmart mass shooting alone, as a lone wolf. No way. No way. He's on record with that. So this is a very decorated FBI agent. Can you imagine? I mean, those are few and far between, and dedicated, and has a character that could investigate so well, cross the T's, dot the I's, document everything right, to bring to justice accountability over 40 officials. What that takes in order to do that is a lot of dedication and a lot of work and a lot of precise investigation and documentation. And so that tells you he was a superb human being investigator, and that his word means a lot. And for him to say, and we know that he was absolutely right, with our evidence and our investigation that we have conducted, that Patrick Crucius could not. They just lied to us about everything about Patrick Crucius. And so, that is another motive for wanting to silence him, because that is the main reason why they silenced Richard, was because of the evidence he had tying Fort Bliss to the Walmart mass shooting. Okay? That is the main reason. Yes, he was exposing the worst type of crimes against children and the trafficking of all kinds of stuff, the criminal trafficking. But he also knew the ties between Fort Bliss and the El Paso Walmart mass shooting of 2019. And that is why they silenced him. And with Julio Cordero being on record, the Julio Cordero being on record, saying that no way Patrick Crucius could have done that alone, that's motive for him to be silenced. And then on top of that, him investigating the 2 El Paso businessmen, that's also motive. So that's really the breaking news tonight, and tying things together. But I think if you look at the map and you see the pipeline, and you see now more and more like other countries are going to be tied into this, because that pipeline was for a financial instrument, I believe, that piqued the interest of other countries. And that's why you see this international interest in Jeffrey Epstein, that he had such a huge long list, and who was in there for the financial interest, who was in there for the worst and worst type of crimes against children and women. That all needs to be sorted out, right? And that's the difficult part, because there's a lot of business people that want to stay, have long family businesses that want to stay uh, in the market, and they have to keep up with the times. And if they got wind that Jeffrey Epstein was creating some kind of financial instrument that would take over money or change everything, change business as we know it, they would have interest. So that explains this world interest in Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. So this pipeline, very evil, very, and the devil is, the devil uses its deception, right? It uses God. It uses God all the time, right? The devil uses God um, to deceive people, to bring people in, and this is my big problem with this Mormon faction, is that they will use God, they will use Jesus, right? Um, in the name of Christianity, okay? And so if they use Jesus, then they need to say, but I'm Mormon, right? Or, because there's a difference between Christianity with the Nicene Creed, the Apostles' Creed, the Athanasius Creed, um, believing in the Trinity, okay? Believing in the Trinity, and that is described in those creeds. I believe, right? I believe. Um, that's a clear definition. Those creeds are a clear definition of Christianity. The Mormon ward, because that's what they call themselves, the Mormon ward, the Mormon stake, um, they don't believe in the Trinity. They don't believe in the Nicene Creed, the Apostles' Creed, the Athanasius Creed, which is, they're that's fine. They don't have to believe in that, but they don't believe in that. But they can't call themselves Christian. They need to call themselves Mormon. The way the Book of Mormon tells us to believe in the way things are, just like Muslims or Mohammedans say, they don't say they're Christian. They say they're Muslim or they're Mohammedans, right? So, that's, I don't like this deception. And in our investigation, why is that important to us? Why is that personal to us? Because in our investigation from the very beginning, we would say, well, who is this person? And they would say, they're this, and they're Christian. Oh, okay. I'm Christian. They're Christian. And I'd be like, okay, that doesn't seem too Christian. But, there's Christians that don't act too Christian. That's fine. But there was a cultural difference with it. Okay. And this Mormon faction, a big part comes from the colonies in Chihuahua, which is a certain culture and a certain belief. And when we started figuring that out, everything made sense. And they are heavily in with the cartels and heavily in with the trafficking, and they really protect this pipeline, this Jeffrey Epstein human trafficking pipe. They protect it. They use all of their connections, which are a lot because they have very big families, all of their connections, and their talents, and their dual citizenry, because they're both Mexican and American citizens, a lot of them, and they use it to protect this pipeline without having any loyalty to the United States of America and their oaths. Okay? And oaths are very Christian. Okay? That's a whole nother study, but oaths, taking an oath, is a very Christian thing. And when you have no regard for your oath, then that explains it. That explains why there is so many in this cartel, El Paso cartel, that have no loyalty to the United States or their oaths that they took. Being, and a good example of that is Connell Wenton, right? Connell Wenton, no regard for his oath, no regard for the United States. It's all about this pipeline. And he is the one that's responsible for leaking Richard's identity to the cartel. And then, of course, you have Tavita Nusa, Solomona Nusa, Samoans. Samoans are primarily Mormon. They're like the number one. I think it's Tonga and then Samoa, American Samoa, are primarily almost all, like over 60% of those islands are Mormon. And, that's being in the CID, that's being in the military, that's being in mortuary operations. And they had no regard for their oath. So, and they are prime suspects in taking our son's life. The prime suspect is Dallas Hart, who also had no loyalty to the United States or his oath. And so that explains why they had a different loyalty. And yeah, so okay, let me read some more of these comments before I go. And if I can share about what El Paso businesses, if you can share about the El Paso businesses, that's coming. That's coming. A lot of LLCs and a lot of the businessmen. Radiation experiments, project paper. Okay, and that's why he killed him. Paid hit is what I sense. The PD is more trust. Well, we also know that Cody Carter, who was, and I'm going back to Cordero answering this question, I'm thinking about Cordero with Acuna. Cody Carter is dirty, y'all. Okay. That's been confirmed in our investigation. That company E with the DPS, and I should have said this, and I need to do it now because it's in my title. I wanted it to do part 2, and then all this other information came in. So, the DPS is compromised. They need to be disbanded because at this point right now, they are a national security risk and they are a risk to the safety of the public, period. Okay. Heavily controlled by this Mormon faction El Paso cartel. Of course, the impersonator, the broken 34th Judicial District Attorney's Office is totally broken, totally compromised, and they answer to that, right? It's been, the DPS has been totally politicized and totally weaponized. Okay, that's why they are a danger to public safety, because they have been weaponized against the public who are questioning or wanting good investigations, questioning the Walmart, questioning the killing of the most decorated FBI agent. I mean, of course we're going to question that, right? What about Castellanos? that were arrested by JT. That he's so dirty, Juan Torres, that he had to flee the country, went to Honduras. Okay. And he was the Texas Ranger that was in charge of the Walmart mass shooting. Um, so this is, that was totally botched, right? And other cases, totally botched. And our son's case, and our case, because we also have a case. So, um, when you have Company E being Gustavo Sanchez, a Texas Ranger, that is a relative of Nadal Baim, and they don't disclose that to you. And Nadal Baim is a Palestinian arms dealer that is totally connected to the cartel, Willie Moya and Arturo Alba, and also the father-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado in the G3 of the 32nd ADCOM, our son's chain of command. And they assign Gustavo Sanchez to us, right? It's very clear that this is a politicized, weaponized, they mean harm. Okay, they're up to no good, and that their loyalty is to protecting this pipeline that does the worst type of crimes against children and is protecting a person that has to go and take some kind of medication so that they can abuse loads of children all at one time, and that they might have farms like those down in Brazil. And that it includes also organ harvesting. And we know that because of what was happening at the border, the men giving up their kidneys to come into the country, the women being targeted, illegal C-sections, organs harvested along with babies, and having the corpses there of over 400 in one go, one raid at the Plenitude Crematorium, owned by individuals that live right next door to Beto O'Rourke and that are part of this big business community, the big business community in El Paso, and part of this whole funeral home corruption that's been going on, and our son's remains trafficked to Juarez, a U.S. Army soldier that was lost his life on base, and his body stolen and trafficked. Yeah, I mean, it's just like jaw dropping. We need accountability for that. So, and very tied to Jeffrey Epstein. Also Freemasonry, yes. There's so much. That's why I call it a Mormon faction, because I don't want a total label. You can't put a total label, right? The same thing with what's been going on with Fort Huachuca and training people to quote unquote be Christian and go in and take over Christian churches or start these mega churches or whatever. And in the name of Christ, this is the problem. This is what's coming out. And this just came out not too long ago with the whole Fort Huachuca. What they were doing there with their asymmetric warfare is training people to be Christian, not to be Jews or Muslims, or to be Christian, and then infiltrate Christian churches. It's just, so we have to be very careful about, I think we just should look at the crimes and hold those that do these crimes accountable. It's really a Oprah's New Age healer. Yeah, it was John of God. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jolynn. And I think that is like huge information, and we can't have a corrupt DA like Montoya, like Bill Hicks was, that a corrupt DA's office telling the Texas Rangers that are totally compromised what to do, right? To weaponize the Texas Rangers, who we've always respected so much, and now we know that they're so dirty. Um, to compromise them, to weaponize them against those seeking justice. Yeah, that is, and whistleblowers. So this is a big deal, and it's being revealed to us. And please share, share, share. When I say us, I mean the public. It is absolutely being revealed what they've done, and that's step one. Step one is being able to see and understand what's going on, and then holding their feet to accountability. So that comes from the voice of the people demanding justice. And so please share, 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 so that our officials, no matter how corrupt they are, that they will be driven to do the right thing. And because our power is so great, we don't even realize how great our power is. The masses absolutely can voice accountability. Absolutely. So thank you so much